One Dog and His Boy, Chapter 7, Sorrow. The dogs in Room A were doing their best. They understood what had happened to Fleck, how he had felt about the boy who came to fetch him, and how the boy had felt about him, and now they did everything they could to cheer him up. All of them had known sorrow. Francine still dreamed of the circus and the busy, useful life she had led there. Honey, in her sleep, still raced over the heather cloud hills as the sound of her master's whistle. Otto had never stopped yearning for the pace of the monastery and the silent dignity of the monks. Lai Chi still waited for someone who would look into his fiery soul. They had all hoped, as Fleck had hoped, that they would find a master worth serving, and had found only borrowers who came and went and did not care. But they were older and wiser than the little mongrel, and they knew that one had to pull oneself together, make the best of things. Fleck in his cage tried desperately to take in what they were telling him, but he was overwhelmed by grief. He lay with his head between his paws. His coat looked dead, his eyes were dull, and he had eaten almost nothing since his return. Kaylee was working in the cubicle next door, and whenever she could, she came in to look at the Tottenham Terrier. She had saved the blue face cloth that had been clamped between Fleck's teeth when he was returned. Mr. Carker would not allow it in the cage, but fortunately the Carkers were away at a dog show looking for exotic dogs to buy, and now she dipped it in Flex's water bowl and moistened his mouth. "You must try and drink," she told him. "You're still a young dog. This isn't the end of the world." But she was lying, and she knew it. Flex's world had ended when the door of his cage shut behind him and Albina Fenton hurried away on her high heels. "Please, Fleck, for all of our sakes," said Kaylee, stroking his weary head. But Fleck only looked at her with his unequal eyes and gave a desolate whimper, which he quickly tried to repress, because he knew that Mr. Carker did not approve of unhappiness. Yet the daily round had to go on. Kaylee went to hose down the yard. Otto was led away by a weedy man who wanted to impress his friends. Lai Chi went off to sit on the lap of yet another ancient lady, and Fleck rolled himself up into a dismal ball at the back of his cage and escaped into sleep. "Is he any better?" asked Pippa as soon as Kaylee had taken off her coat. Kaylee shook her head. She was very tired. "But that's ridiculous," said Pippa. "He can't go breaking his heart after only 3 days with someone. It isn't what happens." "It has happened," said Kaylee, and flopped onto a chair. She wasn't usually like that, and Pippa, who thought the world of her sister, was angry. "I expect the boy's forgotten all about him," said Pippa. "No," said Kaylee. "He won't have done that. Some boys would have done that, but not this one. It was just one of those things." Ralph, one of the twins, looked up from his homework and said it was like Romeo and Juliet. They only saw each other for a moment on a balcony or something, and that was it. "How did it turn out?" asked Pippa. "Badly," said Ralph. "Everybody died." "Idiot," said Pippa. She could see that Kaylee was at the end of her rope. She poured her sister a cup of tea, but Kaylee was scowling. Things did happen that were over the top. There was the story of Greyfriars Bobby, a Skye Terrier who wouldn't leave his master's grave and lay on his tombstone every night for 8 years till he died too. It was supposed to have really happened. One could go to Edinburgh and see the grave. Well, if the boy hasn't forgot about him, then he's just feeble. It's just because he's rich, I suppose. Rich people are always wimps. I wouldn't let someone give me a dog and then take it away again. Not on your life." "What could he do?" asked Kaylee. "He's only a kid." "He could steal, Fleck," said Pippa. "That's what I'd do. It wouldn't truly be stealing. It would be taking back what belongs to one." But Kaylee, remembering how so small and well-behaved beside his overbearing father, didn't think there was much likelihood of that. "We'll have to leave for work very early on Sunday," she told her sister. "The Carkers will still be away. I must say I'll be glad of your help." But Pippa meant to do more than just help. She meant to investigate. I'm going to ask Dr. Rutherford to come and see Hal, said Albina to her husband. He had just come back from Beijing, where he had done an important deal, and looked surprised. Is he ill? He asked. Albina looked annoyed. I told you, he's off his food, and he looks thoroughly peaked, and he hardly speaks to me. School begins again on Monday. We can't send him back looking like something out of an orphanage. Oh, well, I suppose it can't hurt to get him checked out, said Donald. There's been a nasty flu bug around. I sat next to a man on the plane who kept sneezing. I hope I haven't caught anything. When ordinary people want to see a doctor, they go to the office and wait for their turn. But Albina was too rich to be ordinary, and she had a private doctor who would come and see patients in their houses. Dr. Rutherford was elderly, with white hair and a pleasant face, and when he had examined Hal, he asked Mrs. Fenton to leave him to talk to Hal on his own. I can't find anything wrong with you physically, he said to the boy, though of course if you don't eat, you're going to get steadily weaker. Hal shrugged. It doesn't matter, he said. There's nothing I have to do. Dr. Rutherford waited. Nothing? He said. No, not now. But you did have something to do? Yes. But he wasn't going to talk to the doctor about Fleck, or the way his parents had betrayed him. Well, I'll leave you a tonic, said Dr. Rutherford. He smiled. That's what doctors do when they can't think of anything else. I think that what's the matter with you is in your mind. But if you don't want to speak about it, I won't force you. Dr. Rutherford went downstairs and found Albina waiting. Well, did you find anything? Dr. Rutherford put on his coat. No, there is nothing physically wrong, he said. But there is something wrong just the same. The boy is deeply unhappy. Perhaps you know why this might be so. Albina flushed. No, I don't. Hal has everything a child could possibly need. And as the doctor looked at her steadily, there was some fuss about a dog. We rented one for him, and he thought it was here to stay. And when we took it back, he became quite unmanageable. Ah, that would explain it, said Dr. Rutherford. And suddenly there came into his mind the memory of a white bull terrier he had owned as a boy. She had run up the sides of trees and hung off a branch with her teeth like a piece of washing. When she died of old age, he had hidden in the attic and cried for a week. Well, perhaps there is a way of undoing the damage, he told Albina. You will have to look into your mind. But Albina, when he left, did not look into her mind. She looked into the kitchen where she had to prepare her own lunch because Olga, the maid, had had the nerve to give notice on the day that Fleck was returned. You do bad, she said to her employer. You do bad thing. I go. And she had left, even though she had no job to go to, and Albina offered her more money if she stayed. Fortunately, that afternoon, the 3G aunts came to tea, and were shocked to hear of the uselessness of the doctor, coming on top of the impertinence of the maid. You know, Albina, I was wondering, said Geraldine, have you ever thought of sending Hal away to boarding school? I know you'd miss him, but a change of scene is always a good idea. And he does seem to be getting rather spoiled. I mean, he's been sulking now for nearly a week, said Glenda. I tried to tell him that the dog would have forgotten him completely, but I don't think he heard me. Of course you'd find it difficult without him, said Gloria, but it's his good you want to be thinking of, and unless you mean to have another baby to keep him company. Albina shuddered. Oh, no, I couldn't go through all that again, the diapers and the screams. She pondered what her friends had said. I suppose he does need companionship. I'll talk to Donald. Her husband said it would be very expensive. Boarding schools cost the earth, but I suppose it would help to build his character. The fuss he's made about this silly dog business doesn't make one very cheerful about his future. If I gave way to my feelings every time I had an important deal to do, where would we be now? Of course I'll miss him, said Albina. I'll miss him very much, but he's so moody at the moment. And anyway, I think we'll be moving to a new house again soon. I've seen a place with a swimming pool in the basement and a billiard room. Not that we play billiards, but you never know, so that'll keep me very busy. Donald was not interested in Albina's plans for moving. He was used to shifting house every couple of years, just as he was used to changing his car, and his firm was expanding in the Far East. He'd be away even more, but he was glad that Hal would be somewhere settled. Every man worth his salt wanted his children to have the best.